The night the app predicted a lunacy surge, 3.8x fares in effect. Eduardo Reyes filled the tank, wiped the gum wrappers off the back seat, and promised himself he could quit after one more weekend. Every full moon, the city's bars erupted, surge pricing went through the stratosphere, and people seemed just a little off. But rent was due, and the gig economy did not care about vibes. At 7:42 p.m., the first ping arrived. Pickup? The Echo Lounge passenger, Mr. Oberon, 4-leaf clover emoji. A man in an emerald blazer climbed in, carrying an aromatic gust of forest after rain. Eduardo glanced in the mirror. The passenger's pupils glimmered gold for half a heartbeat. Evening, Eduardo said, tapping start trip. Destination? Marshwood Arboretum, North Gate. Evening, driver. The voice was rich, old-fashioned. Mind if I open the window? Go for it. As the Infinity merged onto Riverside, the moon broke from behind a cloud, huge and theatrical. Oberon inhaled it like perfume. The radio, forgotten on low volume, fuzzed with static. Eduardo slapped the dial. Stations fell silent. The city's hum is different tonight, Oberon murmured. Beneath the asphalt, I can almost hear roots waking, cracking the concrete. Eduardo offered a neutral chuckle. Surge nights made customers poetic. They reached the Arboretum in record time. The iron gates were locked, but Oberon stepped out, touched a bar lightly, and the padlock popped. Before Eduardo could react, the man slid between the gates and vanished into darkness. The fare popped into Eduardo's account, $48.77 plus a 5-leaf clover emoji tip. Weird flex, Eduardo muttered. He marked himself available. Ping. Pickup, Harborfront Pier. Passenger, Ms. Ree. Pier 9 was wrapped in sea fog. A woman in a charcoal coat stood alone, hair slick with brine. She carried no purse, no phone, only a small sealed bucket that sloshed. When Eduardo unlocked the doors, she frowned. I don't usually travel on wheels, she said, slipping in. Water dripped off her cuffs. All good. Where to? Any shoreline east of the bridge, and I'll need, music, something with longing. Eduardo hit his indie playlist. A cello moaned. Ms. Ree sighed, like surf pulling at stones. Traffic thickened by the bridge. Hoisted on neon cables, the silver moon crowned every hood and windshield. Eduardo risked a glance. The woman's reflection shimmered like a mirage. Her eyes were pooled darkness. Between bare ankles, the floor mat glistened as if wet. A red light halted them beside a clam shack. Patrons dove into fried baskets under patio lamps. A gull screamed overhead. Ms. Ree lifted the lid of her bucket. Eduardo caught the flash of a fishtail, silver green. Poor thing, she whispered, tethered far from its skin. Eduardo swallowed. You sure this spot works? He pointed at the seawall steps. Yes. She leaned in, left a cold kiss on his cheek that smelled of kelp, and exited. When Eduardo checked his app, the tip field bloomed with a string of blue water drop emojis. He wiped moisture off his cheek. It sparkled like sea spray. Half the world's weirdos ride at surge price, he told himself, and clicked accept on the next ride. Pickup, downtown Arts District passenger, Mr. Pan, goat emoji. A young guy in vintage corduroy hailed him under a mural of sunflowers devouring planets. A flute case hung by his hip. Brother, the man cried, can we skip the seatbelt rules? Feels like a night for freedom. Prefer you buckle up, Eduardo said. Pan sighed, complied. The moment Eduardo synced navigation, Pan plucked the flute free and launched into a crazy jig. Cars around them pulsed brake lights like a synchronized rave. Pedestrians started dancing on the sidewalk, spinning as if possessed. Horns honked in joyous rhythm, not anger. Hey, can you not? Eduardo barked. The music stopped. The sudden silence felt vacuum-packed. Dancers blinked, confused. Pan chuckled, tossed a roll of cash onto the dash. More than the fare. For the disruption. He hopped out at a defunct record shop whose graffitied shutters parted at his touch. Eduardo counted 8 20s. He could have ended the shift right there. Instead, He kept going. A feverish curiosity had begun prickling his skin. Something threaded these riders together. The flicker of ancient eyes, the way reality bent around their whims. At 11:59 p.m., the moon sat directly overhead, so bright the streetlights seemed redundant. The app pinged again, more insistently than before. Pickup, Observatory Hill. Passenger Ms. Celine, crescent moon emoji. Eduardo climbed switchbacks to the old observatory, closed since the funding cuts. The parking lot lay empty, save for one woman perched on a travel trunk, suitcase handle in gloved hand. Tailored ivory suit, hair coiled in a sleek bun, skin luminous as porcelain. Not in the Instagram way, but like alabaster holding a candle inside. She watched his car approach with absolute stillness. He popped the trunk. She shook her head. "I prefer to keep my belongings with me." "No problem." When she settled behind him, the leather seat creaked softly as if bowing. A faint scent of lotus and ozone filled the cabin. "Destination?" Eduardo asked. "First, 142 Hemlock Avenue," she said, voice low, persuasive. "Then the Grand Apex Tower downtown. After that," she paused, "I may have a final request." He tapped it in. The first leg cut through a sleepy residential grid. Wind stirred fallen magnolia petals across pavement. Eduardo's earlier wariness faded. Ms. Selene's aura soothed him like moonlight on an empty pool. He felt oddly seen, as if she'd read every worry scrawled behind his forehead and judged none. "So, Miss Celine," he ventured, "special plans tonight?" "Closure." A single word, heavy as an eclipse. Eduardo chose not to pry. They reached 142 Hemlock, a stately craftsman with iron lanterns and manicured yews. Celine asked him to wait. She glided up the walk, not quite touching stone. On the porch, she raised her palm. A hairline crack zigzagged across the thick oak door, splitting it like a brittle cookie. She slipped inside. 2 minutes ticked by. Eduardo's curiosity itched. He opened his journal app, a self-prescribed therapy exercise, and began a note titled MOON, Manifestations of Odd Nightlife. He typed bullet points: Emerald Man, Cha Gates, Selkie Bucket, Goat Flutist. He reached for words to describe Selena, stopped, and glanced at the house. Light rippled behind curtained windows, soft, then sudden, like lightning in deep water. The front door reopened. She emerged, calm, but her suitcase seemed fuller. "What happened in there?" he blurted before manners caught up. "A debt was paid," Celine said. She settled in, smoothed her skirt. On to the tower. The Grand Apex pierced the skyline at 90 stories. Its top floors were corporate lairs for the world's most inflated egos. Eduardo pulled into the VIP loop. Security usually swarmed, yet no guard stood post. Cellini stepped out and rested a hand on his shoulder. "You've been kind, Eduardo Reyes. If you wish to leave, do so now. If you choose to stay, keep the engine running." "How do you know my—" But she was already gliding through the glass doors, which parted with a hush no sensor triggered. Eduardo's thumb hovered over end trip. Surge or no, this was beyond weird. Yet something noble twined with his fear, a sense that leaving would mean letting the story finish without him. He killed the headlights, left the engine purring. 15 minutes later, the building's lights winked off floor by floor, like a champagne tower draining upside down. The moon brushed the mirrored facade, turning it to a silver monolith. Then, on the sky deck, a flare brighter than any bulb erupted. A blooming sphere that folded into wings, into a woman made of lunar blaze. Even from the lot, Eduardo felt the heatless radiance. Celine, no disguise now, spun her arms. Tides of cloud curled around the tower. Thunderheads swallowed the peak. Alarms shrieked. People evacuated via plaza doors, panicked, but a translucent barricade herded them safely away from falling glass. She wasn't hunting the innocent. Her fury was pinpointed. From the top floor, a helicopter tried to lift off. Rotor blades froze mid-whirl, encased in frost, and snapped. The craft dropped, halted inches above the roof, suspended by unseen strings, then was gently set aside. Eduardo witnessed power tempered by precision, like a maestro wielding hurricane and lullaby in a single gesture. The luminous figure raised both hands toward the moon. Silvery veins lit the tower's skeleton. A sound, part whale song, part church bell, made Eduardo's fillings vibrate. He tasted metal. A shape emerged beside her aura. A masculine silhouette forged from shadow, antithetical light. Perhaps the tower's owner, rumored trillionaire Marcus Vale, nicknamed the Sun King for monopolizing solar energy credits. Celine's voice carried, though her lips did not move. You exiled me. You walled my face behind your city's neon. Tonight I take back what you stole. The shadow figure staggered, as if gravity itself accused him. He shrank, peeled like ash on the wind. The moon brightened, lenses all over town cracked, billboards bleached blank. For one heartbeat, the night was pure silver. Then it was over. Clouds unraveled. The tower's lights flickered to normal yellow. Fire crews found nothing to extinguish. People looked up, dazed, with no memory of panic. Celine returned, resuming mortal form as she entered Eduardo's car. Her suit looked a shade paler, like paper after bleach. She exhaled, and the cabin frosted, then thawed. Final request? Eduardo prompted, throat dry. Drive until we lose the skyscrapers, somewhere with horizon. He steered toward the West Ridge overlook. On the way, silence cocooned them. He expected triumph in her face. Instead, he read centuries of exhaustion. When they reached the ridge, she asked him to cut the engine. She stepped out barefoot onto dew-slick grass, suitcase in one hand. The city glowed below, unaware of its brush with mythology. Eduardo joined her. You did what you came for? I restored balance, she answered, but even she sounded unconvinced. She opened the case. Inside lay a sliver of obsidian, curved, crescent-shaped. My last fragment? He kept it locked in that house. Look, I don't know cosmic politics, Eduardo said, but I saw you spare everyone you could. Feels merciful. She smiled, brittle. Mercy is not my specialty. She lifted the shard. In moonlight it fused to her palm, melting into silver that raced up her arm, tracing veins. Her skin shimmered anew. If you leave, Eduardo ventured, who watches the nights? Who calls tides? I was never needed, she said softly. Humans have electric moons now. I am obsolete glamour. That's not what tonight looked like. She studied him, searching for cynicism, found none. Driver, what do you want most? The question startled him. Rent? A workbook of graduate school dreams? His father's approval? He thought of the random notes in his phone, the ache to write stories that mattered, the fear he was just a wheelman for other people's plots. I want to know this isn't all gig work, he said, waving toward the city. That there's still mystery left. Celine nodded. Then witness. She knelt, pressed her palm to the turf. A ripple of silver light rolled across the hill, blooming ghost-pale lilies. They opened in unison. Each flower cupped a miniature reflection of the moon, as if the sky had shattered into petals. Eduardo gasped, tears warming his cheeks. She stood. Keep looking after them for an hour. They'll seed the rumor of wonder. How will I find you again? He asked. You won't, she replied, but I'll find you when the world forgets to look up. She began to rise, gravity reluctant to let go. Wind circled her ankles like playful dogs. Eduardo, impulsive, grabbed the handle of her suitcase. Take this with you, he said, insisting. Driver rule, never leave baggage. She laughed, a bell across water. Then keep it safe. She pressed the case into his hands. Before he could protest, she lifted, silent as prayer, until the moonfold swallowed her shape. Eduardo stood among luminous lilies, suitcase at his feet, engine cooling behind him. Distant sirens chorused down in the city, chasing explanations. He opened the case again. The obsidian was gone. In its place lay a small parchment envelope addressed in silver ink. For Eduardo Reyes, custodian of interim nights. Inside, a driver's rating card from the rideshare app, 5 stars, and below it, a handwritten map of constellations reshaped into streets he'd never heard of. A note. When these roads appear, follow them. He snapped a photo, saved it under MOON. Back in the driver's seat, He found the app frozen on a blinking message. Surge concluded. He tapped offline. Tonight's earnings were insane, but the real tip lay on the hill behind him, glowing like ground-level galaxies. He put the suitcase on the passenger seat, started the car, and rolled down the windows. A breeze sweetened by midnight lilies filled his lungs. Though the meter no longer ran, he drove, unhurried, beneath a moon that felt less distant, as if leaning close to tell him the rest of the story.